So today we're going to be talking about writing your resume or CV for British listeners like myself. When searching for a job, like your resume is pretty much your first impression, but some people don't know where to start. Whether it's the length of it, the content, or even just simple things like colors and fonts, there's a lot to think about, and many people get worried that they're going to get it wrong, sort of straight off the bat. So to chat through that with me and hopefully help you get it right. I've got Chantelle, who is internship program manager over at Learn Academy. Hi, Chantelle. How are you?
I'm great, Chris. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm the internship program manager at Learn Academy, or a boot camp, which I know a lot of your listeners are boot camp attendees or graduates. And that's a big source of talent into the tech world now as well. So I our boot camp is unique in that we guarantee every single one of our students an internship in the last 4 weeks of their time with us, and that really helps give them work experience to put on their resume. It helps them as they're entering the job market to talk about the companies they worked at or the projects that they worked on and how they contributed in a real way, not just in a classroom.
And Ben, who did our first episode, right? He's one of the companies that you work with.
Yes, he is. He actually has two of our students right now as interns, and it's been awesome working with Planet Argon. They're a great company.
Oh, love that. And you chose to talk about probably something that you know a fair bit about, considering the amount of them you probably see, but resumes. So why did you
Yes.
choose to talk about that?
Because I'm a big nerd and I really like resumes. I
That's the first time I've ever heard anyone say that. But
um so I don't know when it began leaving university and going into the job market. Like I worked as a I worked for on like a coffee cart, like as a barista when I was in college. I worked at Subway making sandwiches when I was in college. And as I needed to move out of just food service into different, like more professional careers where a resume is needed, my husband was actually one of the first people to give me a resume that I was like, oh, that's what it should look like. And he had had a friend who'd helped him with that format. But I took that and hyper focused on it and read a ton about what makes a good one and polished mine up. And now I help my friends, I help my students. This is something that I think that a lot of people don't know where to start, and it can be really daunting figuring out what should I say, how do I talk about myself, and just putting yourself on a single page. Ideally, sometimes we got two, but putting yourself on a page and representing yourself in words can be really difficult for people to know how to even get started. So resumes, the interview process, all of that is really tied into, hey, I'm a good candidate. How do I show that to people? And like you said, the resume is that first impression that people get of you. So how do you make yourself stand out? And how do you not get in your own way with how you're describing yourself and your past experiences?
no, for sure. Look, like I guess my first question, obviously as a recruiter and someone that looks at a lot of resumes, but also a lot of LinkedIn profiles, like
Mhm.
is a resume definitely still necessary, do you think?
Absolutely. Your resume should be tailored to the job that you're applying for. So I'm not going to put my Subway baking sandwiches experiences on any resume ever again. I don't see myself ever going back into food service. Who We'll see, but I have that experience. If that is something that provided relevant experience, I could talk about that in a way that highlighted my skills depending on the job I'm applying to. So I think that's an area where people think they have to put everything they've ever done on a resume, and that is not the case at all. You want it to be things that show that you can do the job you're applying for and show that you are capable of leading yourself, of independence, of working hard, of contributing in a way that's meaningful to the company, to the bottom line. How have you helped in those ways to show that you are someone who would be a valuable hire? Um, and your LinkedIn is awesome, but it is the aggregate. I have my Subway experience on my LinkedIn. That is the entire list. And sometimes you can go in and curate your LinkedIn, like remove certain things, but I would put every job I've ever worked at on my LinkedIn profile. And I would specifically highlight, if I'm on the job market, go in and edit the descriptions of those jobs to be more specific to the types of roles I'm looking for generally. But because
Yeah.
LinkedIn is a place that anybody can see versus a resume, you're handing it to an individual company, that's where you can highlight and you can be specific about the things you want them to see.
For sure. And I guess that was going to be one of my other points. So you think each job application that people do, it should be completely different, or are we just tweaking it kind of slightly depending on the company?
I think that it's more tweaking it than you don't it's not necessary to go in and redo everything. But so as an example, if I don't see myself going and making sandwiches ever again, but if I was applying to work at maybe Subway corporate, it would make sense for me to modify that and put that on my resume again, right? Say, hey, I've worked at one of your franchises. I understand like the values, the ingredients, like this is something that I'm familiar with. So I would put that on and then take it off if I was not applying for a place that mattered. But I think that if we're talking about developers here, like if you're applying to junior developer positions, what industry is that company in? Do you have prior experience in that industry, even in a non-dev area? Do you want to highlight specific things about the projects you've done? Is it a front end or a back end position, or is it more full stack? Like, are there things that you know in the tech stack they use that you've specifically worked on? That's where the tweaks and like you want to shine a laser pointer on those things to show that company, hey, I'm not starting from zero here. I know these things. I know that I'm far less risky than a candidate who's not talking about this. So how can you put that on there in a way that sticks out to them and shows that you're thinking about not just you as a junior developer, but as a junior developer at this company.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess that's where the majority of people, particularly career switchers that do boot camps, I guess struggle with because they might have 5, 10, 15, sometimes 20 odd years of experience in like a job or an industry. And then all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden, 12 weeks or 6 months later, they're a software developer, but
Right.
they've got no experience within that industry apart from the boot camp, but they have all of
Mm-hmm.
this 20 years that isn't relevant
Mm-hmm.
and basically no experience within the actual industry. And it's just like, how do you clog up that entire page with the work that you have done, or like, do you try and fill a page with the work that you necessarily haven't done yet?
I think that there is a gamble to it almost of, okay, what do I focus on? Um, and I think that it's important for when you're going through the job hunt process, the resume, like from writing a resume to applying to sending a cover letter to getting into an interview, the entire process of a company wanting to hire someone is mitigating risk. They need to add someone to their company. They need to uh, pick someone to join the team, and they're just trying to find the least risky person that they can. So if you approach it from this mindset of I know I'd be a good fit, you're not taking a chance on me, like this is something I would come in and be good at and I would contribute. If you approach everything from how do I make myself seem as like not what's the opposite of risky, not risky, as solid as possible, like how if you're approaching it from that mindset, that should help guide you about what you want to include. So great. Before I started working in tech, because I also went to a boot camp. I attended Learn Academy. Back when COVID first hit, I was a student. I was planning on making the switch to being a junior developer because I'd been furloughed from my role and I thought I was going to go through a career switch. Then at the end of the boot camp, I got a call that my furlough was over and they wanted me back. So making money was better than doing the transition. But I've been in that seat of how do I talk about this experience? Um, and now I'm here coaching other people on how to do that. There's all of these things of the work that I've worked on, who I've managed, the projects that I've contributed to, the organization that I've put into systems, that all is incredibly translatable over to a junior developer role. And how you're thinking about who is hiring you and the values that they would have beyond just can she put code in an IDS, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a part of the job, but you need to have critical thinking skills. You need to show that you are easy to work with and communicative. You need to show that you think about how things contribute to a larger picture. Like all of those things are super valuable. So how am I highlighting the stuff in my prior experience to get to that point?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess say for example someone's listening that is either starting their resume or like wants to redo it from scratch. So I guess you're obviously going to tailor it slightly depending on the company, and we'll come on to that later. But
Mhm.
but where if you're starting it from scratch, like where do you start? Are you looking at there's like resume builders out there. There's like so
Mhm.
many paid services, like all of these kind of things. Or do you just find a friend that's got a good resume and copy them? Like, where would you recommend kind of a good starting point?
I think that starting from scratch with a blank page is a bad idea. Don't start with a blank page. There are so many templates out there. There's so many examples out there that going in and removing what isn't you and making it yours is way smarter than trying to just start from a blank page. Just from the formatting perspective, trying to format a resume from scratch is so time consuming. So finding a template that you like, hey, this looks cool. I can go in and edit this and this is what I want to do. That in and of itself is going to be fine. So I think that
Is do you think that's more important? Like, if you liking the format of it as opposed to like trying to work out what people are gonna like?
I think that there is a window of acceptability, and the different resume templates that are out there are going to generally fall in that window of acceptability. You don't know if what you come up with from scratch is. So take the stand on the shoulders of the giants who went before you and formatted all of this and just go and edit it and make it yours. There's little tweaks that you can do. You can swap the font out. You can swap like make your name a purple if you want to on your resume. Like, okay, that's something that's a little unique, but you're not don't put your photo on a resume. Don't like no, we're not auditioning to be in a commercial. Like we don't need a headshot on your resume. Don't do it. It's a bad idea. But the templates that are out there because they've been deemed acceptable. So go that route. If you really feel like starting from a blank page, look at what those look like and look at the similarities, look at the indentation, look at what is bolded, look at the headers, figure out what you need to do from scratch. But why put the energy into that?
Yeah, for sure. And that was gonna be my next question. Like, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Do not put your picture on your resume.
Thank you.
Like I don't know who started that, but like they need to be found and they need to be stopped. But would you say that there's any other like definite like no-nos for like a resume things just to definitely not put on there?
Um, I don't think that you need a references upon request. We know that you'll give us references if we ask for it. Like,
Yeah.
we don't need that line on there. I don't think that you should.
Maybe you should have to put on if you definitely don't have any references. That's
Maybe.
it. Assume unless I've stated otherwise that I have references. Like
Right,
if you have
exactly.
absolutely no one that people can call, maybe note that down.
Right. I just think it takes up space. It's not that it like I don't think it knocks points off of a candidate necessarily, but I think it takes up space. There's still there's this is getting a little sidetracked from your question, but there's the debate of one page or not. And like should someone get stick to a single page? I wish that I could credit the person who said this. I saw it on LinkedIn probably years ago, but they said something along the lines of whoever says that candidates should only stick to one page should step on a Lego. And I agree with that. I think that if your experience is if you are still highlighting the things that genuinely matter and show that you're a good candidate, you can extend onto 2 pages. However, you can't guarantee that someone will look at the second page. So the most impactful stuff should be on the first one. If you aren't shining from the first page, why are they going to want to look at the second? So that's the rule of thumb there. But back to what shouldn't be on there. Don't put your full address. City, county, city, state, wherever you're located is fine. Don't I this is my belief and I would love to know your opinion on it. But some people will take skills and they'll put it on a slider, and like for the visual effect of like, oh, I know JavaScript, and it's like a little slider and it's like at the 80% mark or
Yeah.
something like that. I think those are terrible for showing you as a
Yeah.
candidate where you're at. Like, no, that is something that they can evaluate through technical interviews or other methods. Looking at your code on GitHub alone should give them a an idea of where your skill level lies. Putting those on a slider, one, the Dunning-Kruger effect is very strange, and you probably think you're better than you actually are at a lot of these skills. So that is not going to be accurate, and also you're probably shooting yourself in the foot from the get-go because you don't know what skill level they're looking for. You don't know what you don't know if this is a really poor representation of yourself that could close the door as opposed to opening it because you just put, oh, I know JavaScript, I know Python, I know MongoDB. Like, just putting those on a list is absolutely adequate. Get the sliders out of here. I've seen so many people do it, and it's never as it doesn't do them the favors they think it does. And I think that's where big resume beginners might see this and be like, oh, that's really cool. This is a cool visual way of showing my skill levels. You don't want to show your skill levels that way. You want your skill levels to speak for themselves in the work that
Yeah.
you produce.
No, for
I don't
sure.
tell
Like,
me your thoughts on that.
yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, I think like proficient in and like also touched. Like, it's kind of like the split that
Mm-hmm.
you want to have is like I've done lots with this and a tiny bit with this is kind of useful for people.
Mm-hmm.
But when you see someone coming out of a boot camp or even like a mid-level engineer putting like 9 out of 10 with React, it's like, are you? Like, probably not.
Right.
Like, compared to everyone
Right.
that is more senior than you're probably not a 9 out of 10. Like,
Right.
and like you said, that means that you either put like some people put 10 for like everything, which is just like
So
unrealistic,
just make a
or
list.
or you've got to put stuff on there and basically write yourself that you're a 3 or a 2 on like some other stuff. Like, why is that on there? So I think highlighting. I also don't like when there's literally just a huge, almost paragraph of just every single thing that you've ever
Mm-hmm.
touched, because that to me as a recruiter and to the person that's receiving your resume on the other end, like whether that's a tech manager or whether that's an internal recruiter, it's not
Mm-hmm.
useful. Like, it means that you'll come up in searches and everything like that. But
Yeah.
the I think the biggest thing that you need as a junior developer is to be able to show like what you're good at and what you're interested in working on like very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
If it's confusing, or like you really have to dig into the resume to be like, well, what is it they want to do? They've listed 100 different technologies here.
Right.
Like, are they looking to work with all of them? Like, where have they spent most of their time? Like, that's shooting yourself in the foot kind of straight
Mm-hmm.
away. Whereas if you can just put proficient in and interested in working on like React, like that's my main interest. I've
Mm-hmm.
also done some with Node, with AWS, like whatever the other things are that you've touched or you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good way of kind of splitting it up.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've seen some good ones where they categorize things like front end technologies, back end technologies, etc. And it's like columns of bullet points, and that is
Yeah.
so much more visually easy to read. I think that it's a your mileage may vary depending on just formatting with all of this because it's going to depend on what you decide to highlight. I don't think that there's any specific right way to do it, just for listeners who are like, okay, I got to go do columns with bullet points. I don't think that that's necessarily the answer. I think that asking yourself, because not all recruiters are technical, is someone who's non-technical able to look at this and know what I can do? Because that's the bar that you need to set. You can't assume that someone who's looking at this is a senior dev. You can't assume that someone who's looking at this has any dev experience whatsoever. They may have just been given a job description and like a checklist of what they need to look for, and that's all. And if that doesn't if that doesn't stick out to that person, then it's going in the no pile, and you'll probably
Yeah.
never hear from them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's why, like, obviously you said kind of tailoring your resume to a specific job is also important, because if like you said, as a recruiter, say for example, I've got 100 odd resumes, like in a pile there of
Mhm.
people that have applied to my advert or people that I've found. I'm going to try and narrow that down, to get it to like a reasonable number to kind of search through. And
Mhm.
I will add, say for example, it's a React job, but it's a nice to have like Node as like any experience with Node. I will search for React and Node and I'll
Hmm.
be like, okay, now I've got 50 people to go through, so I'll go through those. If you've just applied and like haven't seen that that's a nice to have and you do have it, but you haven't put it on your resume because you're just doing a kind of generalist one,
Yep.
then you'll miss out on that one because it does need to be kind of narrowed down somehow, right?
Yep. I was talking with a friend of mine. We worked together at a past job. We're now in different places, and he's now a technical recruiter. So I was talking with him about his experience, what he's seeing, all of that, and they opened up two junior developer internship positions at his company. In 2 days, he had over 800 applicants.
Wow.
Like that, and I see so often companies where, like on LinkedIn, you can see how many people have applied. Really, that's just counting how many people click that apply button and sends
Yeah.
them to the website. So don't be intimidated by that number. But I see 4,000 applicants for a junior dev position. Like that's so many. And how on earth is a company going to weed through all of those? Honestly, generally they don't. They might just have like say, great, we opened this, it was open for 5 days, we got 5,000 applicants, we're going to just cut it from who applied in the first 3 hours and just look at those.
Yeah.
That's going to totally vary depending on the company, what tools they use, what ATS software they use, that sort of thing. But it's not possible. Like the if you think about the amount of time it would take to go through 1,000 resumes, 1,000 resumes, and how many hours that takes, and how much money you are paying that person to look at all of those resumes. Hiring someone is expensive. Hiring someone is so expensive. And so the more that a candidate can do to stick out, show that they are a person that they can make a decision on quickly and easily. And again, that first step is on a resume. That is only going to make the process easier for you and continue moving you through from interview to interview.
Yeah, for sure. I guess we've said like absolute sort of no-nos. Like what are the must-haves that everyone should have on their resume?
Since we're talking about junior developers, list of skills. I like back to what you and I were saying, like talking about the technologies and everything that you've worked with. Don't hide that. I think even putting that up above your work experience is wise. So, list of skills, I think you absolutely should, when it comes to the work experience that you have, this is a more rule of thumb, but thinking about how much of a description underneath each job that you have, this is where you want to quote one of my students, keep it simple, sexy. And minimum of 2 bullet points, maximum of five. And if you're going to five, all five of those have better be highlighting just how stellar you are. Uh, so making sure that those are really great at showing your experience, how you can contribute, that sort of thing. Put your phone number on your resume. So many people don't. They're like, I don't want to get spam calls. And like, who are you giving your resume to? Like,
Yeah.
like, you want them to have every opportunity of contacting you. And I see people who don't put their phone number on their resume. And generally speaking, well, never mind. Nix the generally speaking. But great, if they like a candidate, it might be an email that they send. But I think also many companies are still calling people and being like, hey, do you have time? Like, we'd love to interview you. Like, a phone call is not out of the realm of possibility. They can't do that if they don't have that. Hopefully, in
Yeah.
other parts of the application, they've asked for that, but give every opportunity. I even, in my personal resume, in my footer of my resume, I have my name, my email, my phone number as a footer on my resume. So
Yeah.
we still live in a world where stuff gets printed out and you've got a stack. And in my mind, if it's all folded this way and its name's at the top, or if it's all folded this way and it's just the bottoms of the resume in a stack, my contact information is going to be on either side. That's my
Yeah.
thought process there.
For sure.
Um,
I agree with you on the phone number as well because like as a recruiter from like an agency perspective and like it's the same for an internal recruiter or like you said whether it's a CTO of a startup that's got to do the recruiting himself like the idea is to get that role filled or like have a good pipeline of candidates as soon as possible. Like they're
mm,
they're not sat there being like, right, so for the next 2 weeks, all I'm going to be doing is trying to fill this one junior developer position. It's like, right,
mhm.
we need probably 10 maximum first stage interviews. Like, let's find like the best that we can find as quickly as possible. And like you said, you might get an email like to say like, oh, like would you be interested in speaking about this position? But if there's 20 people on there that have got phone numbers, like they'll get phoned at the same time you get emailed, and if they all
Right.
pick up, like they'll get booked in for a call or even have that first interview like straight on the fly, like off the back of that with the internal recruiter, and then as soon as they've got their 10, say, like they'll shut the position, and if you email them back 2 days later, like they'll
Yeah.
have the position covered and you might be considered for a future time. So why not put yourself
Mm-hmm.
in the best position possible? And I think that the thing that stops people putting their contact details on their resume is almost this kind of scattergun approach of I need to apply to as many jobs as possible. As like I see some of the stats on LinkedIn, it's like I'll apply to like
Yeah.
200 positions per day. Like that's the only way that you'll ever.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that. Like you should be applying to like I don't know 10, 15 a week absolute maximum, and tailoring your profile to it, like having specific outreach to like that company, connecting with people on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn. There's so much you can do, and you're much better off doing
Absolutely.
doing a much lower amount than like correctly and like doing it well than you are just applying to everywhere. And if you've picked like 10 opportunities that you're really interested in, why would you not want them to have your phone number to call
Right.
you back like about
Right.
the position?
I think that the phone number, because there's the quality approach that you're talking about of be specific, be intentional, custom cover letter, like modify your resume, all of that. And then there's the quantity approach that so many people are feeling like they need to, because let's face it, the number of jobs that say junior in the job description is far lower than it should be. Like, I'm a huge advocate for companies companies should be investing in junior talent. Like, I see so many hundreds of listings for senior staff, principal developers, like that we don't have enough. There are not enough senior developers out there. And I made a LinkedIn post a couple weeks, a week ago ish, asking like, where do you expect the people to get these years of experience from? Where are you expecting to get that experience from? Because even junior positions are asking for 4 years of experience in React or something. And it's like, that's not a junior position anymore. That's not a junior
Yeah.
position. A junior position should be something that is from 0 to 1, maybe 1.5 years of experience. And that is a junior position. And anything more than that, you're asking for someone who's mid-level. That's one of the issues in this industry, is that there is no standardization of titles with years of experience. And even years of experience can be incredibly subjective depending on the projects that someone was working on. Someone could have 5 years of experience, but they were also doing like 8 other jobs because it was a startup, and they don't have the same skill level as someone who's dedicated a ton of focus in just a year and a half. Like, there is so much subjectivity there. But that is one of the problems in the industry, is that some people say junior developer is the minimum amount of requirement that we need you to have to hire you. It's like, no, that's I fundamentally disagree with that, and that people need to see that there are incredibly talented, hungry individuals wanting the jobs out there who are absolutely capable with maybe a little more guidance and training. But this is dev work. We have version control. If they mess something up, revert it back to a couple hours ago. Like, there's nothing that
Yeah.
is so critical that someone who needs that experience, needs that opportunity. And also, there are statistics that show hiring someone as a junior and showing them a clear path to of like rising yourself up through the company. Like, in 2 years we will, like, you'll be a mid and you'll have this pay, and in this many years you'll be senior. Like, these are the levels of responsibility that will increase in your time here. That transparency, salary transparency, lowers attrition. If people are like, oh, it's risky, people move on in a year, it's like, why are you letting your people move on in a year? Why aren't you keeping them? Says more about the company than it does about junior devs. So, anyways, that's a whole nother topic away
Yeah.
from resumes. But I understand the quantity and the quality conundrum that junior devs are feeling, because the number of opportunities out there, they feel that they're in competition with the world. And that's hard. It sucks, to feel like you are against 2,000 other candidates who are applying. Um, and I think that just puts like it that can be really difficult to process. And I think when it comes to the mental health aspect of things, reminding yourself that there are the things that you have control over. You can control how good your resume looks. You can control what you put in a cover letter. You can control what you're posting on LinkedIn and how optimized that is. You can control who you are reaching out to and asking to connect with. The other things require action of, I know that I'm going to apply to, is it 15 jobs a week, and I'm going to be really intentional. Maybe it's more than that. Maybe like this is their full-time job is job hunting and they're going for 40 jobs a week. Who knows?
Yeah.
But those are the things that you can control, and how you're presenting yourself in this environment that is so I don't like using the word competitive, but it is like it's competitive to get the job. So how are you making, I think a lot of people are like, oh, there's not enough jobs, and there aren't, but are you controlling everything that you can to stick out as a candidate?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's one of those things like as a recruiter, like
Mm-hmm.
my dream is to have a job, open it up and like get sent the perfect resume and someone just say, I am good for your job because of this,
Mm-hmm.
and like reach out to me, and like me already know that they're a good person to speak to, and
Mm-hmm.
I will just reach out to you straight away and get you submitted. Like that's what I want. Like the biggest like my commodity is time, right? So if you can
Yeah.
save me time and tell me why you're a good fit without me having to go and search for it, like that's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. So if you can highlight that in your resume, drop me a connection on LinkedIn and just be like, hi, this is why I think I'd be a good fit for that job. Here's my resume. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
doing my job essentially for me and saving me time, which is amazing. So like that's my full-time job and that's how I feel. So think how a
Mm-hmm.
CTO is going to feel if he's got 1,000 resumes to go through
Yeah.
and you go, hi, Mr. CTO, like I think I'd be a great fit for this position because I saw you're looking for X, Y, and Z. I've done all of those. Here's my resume. Or like would love to connect and send you my resume. You're top of the pile. Like, and it's not going to work every single time.
Right.
But if you do that as opposed to, oh, there's a junior dev job open, need to apply, need to apply, need to apply.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll sometimes get people apply to job ads that are completely irrelevant because they're just clicking like
Yeah.
apply. And I'm sure there's automated bits of software out there that just have people apply to anything and everything. And even I get it from mid-level and senior engineers like that just apply to stuff that just aren't right for them.
Mm-hmm.
That make me think as a recruiter, I'm like, well, even if I did have something that was right for them, like they that do they even know if they're right
Right.
for like these positions? Do they know
Mm-hmm.
what they work on? Like it's
Yeah.
tough.
I think that there's something
Um,
to be said about, like, okay, I'm looking for someone with attention to detail. You obviously didn't read the job description. Like, that's a ding against just the qualities they're looking for in a candidate.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. And I think that's one of the things that we were talking about earlier. They if someone is searching for a true junior developer, as we were saying, like not
mhm.
someone that wants 4 years of experience because
Yeah.
that's not a junior, they just want to pay less money than they should be and trying to create a loophole to be able to do so.
Yeah.
Like the it's not years of experience that they're looking at. They know that you're going to be junior. They want a certain level of coding ability,
Hmm.
but the other things that you need to show in your resume, right? It's like you said, it's attention to detail, it's being proactive, it's being collaborative. Like these are the things that you need to be able to show in
Hmm.
your approach and also in your resume. So I guess how do you get those things across in your resume? You've got obviously your experience on there. You've got your
Hmm.
list of skills. So you've got your boot camp that you went to. You've got your list of skills. Like you've got your phone number. Like how do we get across these softer skills? Is it a paragraph like right at the top? Is it like a little about me? Like how do they include those things and show those qualities?
I think that talking about working on a team, like in past experiences, did you work on a team? How did you, like, what was your role on that team? How did you contribute to that team? That's going to be a part of it. Like, solo projects are one thing, but teamwork is so essential. When it comes to like listing skills, I'm generally opposed to people putting things like communication and hard worker, like the putting those as like soft skills in a list of skills that uh, I think that people need to show it in the talking about their prior experiences. So there's so many like words that point to those soft skills. So communication, pitched and implemented a new project. Like great, this is something that you had to pitch and like get going at like at your company. Um, Collaborated, talking about uh, even saying like worked on a team to implement, like those types of things are going to show those soft skills. Uh, I think that there's a lot of focus on there's the XYZ format for resumes of like accomplished X doing Y to like Z percentage, something along those lines. If you Google it, you can find the exact wording there. But there's a lot of focus on that and making sure that there's elements in there that show um, that you can work well with others, that you can um, work with the people above you, work with the people below you as well. Did you coach anyone? Did you manage people? Did you train people? Did you create better processes to train people? Like those are things that are going to show that communication and um, patience and dedication, like those are going to come through and how you're talking about those experiences. I I want your opinion on this too. What are your thoughts on like the bullet points of like communication and like those sorts of things?
I think like for me, like the biggest thing that people are looking for when they're looking for a junior dev is like people being proactive. And I
Mm-hmm.
think you there's no point just like you said being like I am proactive or like I am collaborative. I can work well on a team. Like kind of need to know why and kind of like justify as to why. I think you could also demonstrate that like we said before with your approach to applying for the job. So like
Mm-hmm.
actually reaching out and saying like, "Hi, I've applied to this job. I think it's good because like of all of
Mm-hmm.
this kind of thing." But like talking about times that you've been proactive, like you said, it maybe you did work at Subway and you suggested a new sandwich. Like, do you know what I mean?
Sure.
It could be things like that. Like, I think proactivity, like as a junior developer, particularly if it's a remote job or whatever, like you said, people want to hire people that are low risk. So they want people that are going to go away, try something, and then come back and be like, I've tried this. Like, and it's finding that balance between someone that's not going to go and bang their head on a brick wall for like 2 weeks and come back and be
Mm-hmm.
like, I've been trying this when they could have asked, but also someone that is going to not ask straight away, oh, I don't know how to do that. Someone that's going to go away, try it, come back and be like, I've tried this. What would you suggest to do next? And that's all people are really looking for, alongside obviously a minimum bar of technical skill. That's what people want
Yeah.
from a junior developer. So it's being able to show that on your resume. So
Yeah.
like where have you done that? That might be in like the project you did at your boot camp. It might be in an internship. It might have been when you were at university. Like where have you been proactive?
Mm-hmm.
Like that would be my biggest one. And then outside of that is the collaboration and teamwork. Like where have you worked within a team, not on your own? Because it's very unlikely that the company that you're applying to, you're going to be the first developer in that organization if they're
Not as
hiring
a
for a
junior.
junior. Yeah, if it is, like, probably don't work there, because that's probably going to be set up to fail. But you're going to be working as some part of a team, and you're going to be most likely someone's junior. Like you're going to
Mm-hmm.
be like working with a senior or like with a mid level or like a part of a larger team, and you want to be seen as like we spoke about this on another one as not necessarily a hindrance to the team, but like it does take away from that person to start with, and they
Mm-hmm.
want someone that is going to take away as little of their time as possible, but also like give back to the team as quickly as possible. So if you
Mm-hmm.
can show that you're someone that like goes away and just does what they're told, but also goes above and beyond to try new things and try and improve things,
Mm-hmm.
like that can be in any past role that you've done that, and you don't have to list your entire work experience, but you can say from my time as an X, like I did this or implemented this or went and did
Mm-hmm.
that. So being proactive and collaborative, I think, needs to be in there.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I think the only bit that I am always kind of on the fence about is like what is the best like just intro, like the, because obviously that's the first thing that people see, right? And it's the
Yeah.
same on people's like LinkedIn and like all of that kind of stuff. Like, have you seen any yourself that have like really stood out, or is there a particular format of like just first thing on there of like who you are and kind of like to try and capture some sort of attention?
So I think that it depends, and that's not a terrible answer to start off with. Generally speaking, I think too many people do the profile statement poorly. The however many sentences, 3 or 4 sentences at the top of a resume that's talking about who you are and what you're doing. I think so many people do it so poorly. Uh, and that's unfortunate. But I think that I don't think every resume needs a profile statement. I think that a cover
Okay.
letter, if you're also including a cover letter, can do far more than a badly written cover like profile statement on a resume. And so that's something to consider is like, is a profile statement really doing you the service of accurately and succinctly talking about who you are and what your experience is, or is it, uh, or is it just poorly written? Is it trash? Like, or is it using the buzzwords that you know everybody is going to use? Because that's also the difficulty. Is like,
Yeah.
I think every junior developer has like it. You could almost swap profile statements out from one another. So if you're
Yeah.
just using the buzzwords that you like, that everybody is using, then it's not actually making you stick out. So how I think that if you have something that is genuinely and uniquely showing something you like amazing about you, great, have something. Otherwise, I think that it's unnecessary on a lot of resumes. And I think a cover letter gives you way more space to talk about yourself and your prior experiences in a meaningful way. That's a personal opinion, probably because I've seen so many badly written ones. I like what do you think about what are your thoughts on that?
So I quite like the opening statements,
Hmm,
particularly on LinkedIn, like the headlines and,
sure.
and all stuff like
I think
that.
LinkedIn is different
I
though. Like I think that if we're
Yeah,
talking just about resumes and people taking up an inch of space to write a
yeah.
badly written thing, that's different. LinkedIn, absolutely, you should absolutely have that. Take up the space
Yeah.
that you need, but
Uh,
on a piece of paper.
Yeah, I think like you said, like if it's going to be something that anyone could have written and should written, like if you're stating the obvious of I am a bootcamp grad who is looking for a software development position, like you said, there's no point. Whereas if there's something, maybe you like won a hackathon, like maybe you are actually like considered in the certain percentile of people on GitHub for like
Hmm.
this particular thing. I think if there is a real standout thing,
Yeah.
like put it on there. But if there's not, don't make one up. Like you said, lean into more of the personalized cover letter and outreach and like why you want to work at that company and why you think you'd be a good fit, as opposed to trying to just make it stand out for the sake of trying to make it stand out, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah. I think
So
that I think this is the struggle people have with resumes in general. You don't know what you don't know, and so you don't know if it looks good until someone tells you whether or not it is. And I think that's when that comes to the point of don't ever submit something without having another person look at it and give you their honest feedback. Like you want the job, the feedback should matter. So don't get hurt if someone says that this looks bad. I have with our students, we're getting people with all kinds of backgrounds coming into transition into tech. Some people have never written a resume before ever, and they're coming in, they're creating something. And I've had to go to people and say, listen, I know the work you put into this, but let me tell you, as someone who has hired people in the past, this is going to be a blocker to you ever getting a job. This piece of paper that you have created is not going to ever get you a job. So let me help you make this not a blocker. And that's how I want to present it, because they're not trash. They're not a trash person. They've just made a
Yeah.
trash piece of paper. And I don't use that word with them, but like I don't want this to, like, I don't want a hiring manager to look at this and immediately go nope and throw it in the trash. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want that to happen. I've seen some resumes that like wall of shame type of thing. Maybe they're kept because of how bad they are. But it's not to seriously consider them as a candidate. So how do I, when I'm telling someone and giving that feedback of like, listen, we need to start from scratch here. Let's, like, here, I've got a folder of templates. Which one do you like? Awesome. This is where we're starting now. We're in Google Drive. We're working on this together, in
Yeah.
Google Docs, and we have this both up. And this is, we'll pull work experience from this, but this document is never going to get sent to anyone ever. And that's how I
Yeah.
want them to think about it is, you want the job, you want to open up every door possible, and this is going to lock it. Like, this resume is going to
Yeah.
lock that door. So how do we keep moving forward? So getting that feedback from someone, having someone read through it. Do they understand the type of thing that you're applying for? Do, like, checking for typos. Are your, like, indentations aligned? This goes back to some of the, like, don't do's. I love Canva. I've been using Canva for ages, but don't use Canva for your resume. It's so difficult to, like, get everything aligned the way you want it. If you need to add anything, you've got to adjust the entire document. Use a document editor. Like, just use Google Docs, use Word, whatever, but don't use Canva. I know that there's beautiful templates on there. That's the issue. Back to headshots. Canva has too many resumes with headshots.
Really.
That's where it's pulling from. That's where
It's
everyone's
Canva's
getting.
fault.
It's Canva's fault. Canva, we love you, but take the
Yeah.
headshots off the resumes.
Yeah.
Um, but anywho, getting that feedback before you ever upload that into a resume, like, absolutely look at that. Uh, get that feedback from someone. Listen to it, go in, edit it, ask them to help you edit it. Sometimes they might have, one of the things I love doing with my students is I'll see how they've written about a work experience, and I'm like, okay, great, I see this, but just talk to me. Tell me what you did. Talk to me about, like, great, you worked on, you, I work with a lot of veterans, so people who've been in the military, talking with students. I had one student, he was in the military, and after he left, he worked at a train yard, and then he also was working as a prison guard. You find the work that you can. So he's like, how do I talk about this experience and, like, all of this? And we were talking about his military experience. And I was like, okay, talk to me about, like, you're applying to get into tech. Is there anything in your military experience that, like, focused on tech, like electrician or like mechanic, like those types of things? And he's like, actually, my unit tested this communications device that, like, the army was thinking about implementing for, like, field work. And it was like, I don't remember the details about it, but he was talking about, like, we tested this and we, like, gave our feedback on all of this. I never would have thought of that if I hadn't spoken to you about it, but that's something that we put as a bullet point on his resume, because tested and, like, all of this specific piece of technical, like, machinery, like, that's something that kind of indirectly, but hey, you're trying to get into a dev job. Now you
Yeah.
have experience with this technology. That's so cool. That's going to stick out, as opposed to just, I showed up to drill on time. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
people don't care about that piece. They want to know about, like, what technical experience do you have? So talking about, I tested this as part of your unit. That's so cool. So just that coming up in conversation, that coming up in, like, us talking about the work experience, like, great, who did you train? What did you do? Like, what did you change? Asking those questions and just having people have a conversation about it, I can then say, okay, great. And I write a bullet point for them because I'm helping them a lot with their resume. But then I say, do you feel like this is accurate to the work that you did? And we might edit it and whatnot, but I'm able, because I've worked with resumes so much, I'm able to say, this would be the resume way of saying this.
Yeah.
And that's the struggle that a lot of people have, is figuring out the formality that is required for a document like this for a job application. I was, have you heard of registers in, like, spoken language? I
No.
literally just learned about this, and I think it's fascinating. So there's the idea that there's 5 registers in the English language, where the most informal is like incredibly casual, and then the most formal is, like, very, like, rigid. And because there's 5, the the idea that if there's more than two separating it, it's basically like speaking a different language. And so the more informal, the more like is more associated with people who have had like very blue collar, like lower class, all of that. Whereas the formality is like very, very white collar, incredibly rich, very formal. And that register of language for formality is what is used in job applications. And that is something that if you are not accustomed to speaking in that way, in writing in that way, in representing yourself in this more formal way, it's like speaking another language. And you need someone to help you translate to that to then be considered in a professional environment, which is such a shame because there's so many really talented people who may not have that training in the formal way of speaking who just aren't going to be considered because it's considered too informal in how they're representing themselves. It was a
Yeah.
really fascinating thing. There's more research on it, but I literally just learned about this, and it made so much sense why so many people struggle. Where
Yeah.
you were never good at writing your papers in school, like just how to make that adjustment to this formal speech pattern. And it's not speech as written, but same idea. That can really be a blocker for folks in just trying to how to represent themselves. So
Yeah.
that's part of why I love working with people on it because I'm able to do that translation in a sense, put in that
Yeah.
that more formal register, that more formal way of speaking on paper, and they look at it and to see the way that their confidence increases, to see the way that they are so much more equipped to go into an interview and talk about their experiences, just helping them work on their resume and getting that into a really stellar place. They're able to take that and feel way more equipped and confident in speaking about their experiences and what they should highlight and how to show that they are capable and qualified when speaking with someone. Because I've seen the difference before working with someone and their interviews. I get feedback that they didn't really know how to answer the questions. They got off track. They weren't focused on specific things. And then helping them with a piece of paper and hearing how that focused them in on what makes them a stellar candidate and how that affects the quality of their interviews. I've seen that correlation. So all of that going back to get that feedback, get someone to help you. At the start of the episode, you were asking, like, are there like websites and there's paid services and all of that. I think that if you are applying for something for a certain amount of time and you're not hitting it, that's when you absolutely should be getting feedback. I don't think the paid options are where anyone should turn from the start because everyone is absolutely capable of doing this. Um,
Yeah.
but asking for help along the way and then evaluating, okay, is there something that I'm absolutely missing that I'm too close to it to step back and see? Um,
Yeah.
and getting that help from somebody. Is it a mentor? Is it a past boss? Is it a family member? Is it there's so many free resources out there. I know that there's different community centers that do resume workshops, etc. Like those are things that taking advantage of them can absolutely help you see where you need to be improving and where you can take that next step in representing yourself on paper.
Yeah, for sure. And ultimately, like that's not the job that they want you to do. They don't want you to be a good resume writer, like, and they don't care if you've written 5% of it or 100% of it. Like, they just want to be able to see if you're a good candidate or not.
Mm-hmm.
So speak to speak to people that have recently landed jobs. Like, speak to people
Yeah.
from your boot camp, see how they're getting on. If they're getting interviews, like, ask them to have a look at their resume. Like, ultimately, like you said, you need this is your way into a company. It's
Mm-hmm.
not you trying to misrepresent yourself because you get
Right.
someone to help you with the way that you've written it. It's just to get you a foot in the door, and then if the company, you don't have to pretend you're someone that you're not once you're in there, and that's not what we're talking about. Like, it's just to put you on a level playing field with everyone else, and
Mm-hmm.
and get you potentially even above that to get you in the door and open up a conversation. Like, that's what the resume is for,
Right.
just to literally create conversations with organizations, and then it's up to you and them to work out whether it's the right fit for you both.
Hmm.
But you need to be able to do it to get that foot in the door.
Right.
So no, thank you so much for your time, Chantel.
Thank you.
I've got two more, and
Yeah.
I just want a yes or a no.
Yeah.
Speaking in third person on a resume.
Speaking in third person. Ooh, that's not a yes or no question, Chris. Uh, yes. Speak in third person. Don't speak in first
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, no, like that. And hobbies, should they be on there or not?
If you have put the time and the effort and the hours and the money into something to be excellent at it, yes. I helped a friend of mine put his Dungeons and Dragons campaigns on his resume, and it got him a job at Qualcomm.
Oh, love that. But like going for walks and going to the gym and things like that
No,
can stay off.
no. If you
Okay.
so this was something we framed it as he was a uh community event organizer. He DM'd these campaigns, but it was beyond that because it was him and his friends basically creating their own tabletop RPG. So it was like a whole new rule system. They were inventing this like all of this stuff. And so all of these hours going into creating this, um, I was like, I know you do this. I know how many hours you put into this. We could try this. And he's like, I love that because it was something he's absolutely passionate about. It's something he could talk about.
Yeah.
And so we framed it. We did not put it as Dungeons and Dragons on his resume. We framed it as community event organizer and how he organized team building activities in a time constrained situation. He like marketed and created training materials. Like we found ways to turn it into this more formal, like job focused thing. But yes, if it's something like that where you have invested your like time and money and effort into it and it can be translated into something that's jobby, in something that will help you stand out as a candidate, go for it. But don't put just going to the gym on there.
Perfect. Well, oh, thank you so much for your time, Chantal. Really, really enjoyed chatting to you.
Thanks.
And if anyone has any questions to kind of follow up with myself or Chantal about your resume, just either drop me a message on LinkedIn, or email podcast at thedeveloperlink.io. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks, Chantal.
Thanks so much, Chris. Have a great day, everyone.